All right, very good. So I'm going to call tonight's meeting of the planning board to order at 5:41 p.m. Our first order of business, we'll just do a quick approval of minutes. We have two meetings with minutes, but only the meeting of August 26th has been circulated. We had a public hearing on September 17th. Those minutes are still being, refined before distribution. So clean copy went out. Do either UJD or Laura have any questions or concerns about the minutes of the meeting of August 26th?
Nope.
Okay. Then maybe JD, you might make a motion to approve them.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of August 26th.
Okay, the motion has been made. Laura, I'm really relying on you.
I'll second the motion to approve the
All right.
August 26th meeting minutes.
Very good. Thank you, JD plus Laura. Okay, so now we have to do this by roll call. So JD,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
okay, and me, yes. So the three votes in favor and nobody else voting. So they are approved. So the next topic of conversation is going to be the comprehensive plan led by our esteemed guest, Megan Rhodes from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. So what I'm going to do, she's provided slides. If anyone wants copies of those slides, I can share them. But right now, we're going to put them on. I'm going to put this into slideshow mode. And then I'm going to yield the floor. You can just cue me slide by slide.
Sure. Yeah, so we'll go through it
And
quickly.
maybe since it's a little intimate setting, move nearer our owl, so your audio is picked up well.
So Megan Rhodes from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. I'm a planner there.
You're more than just a planner. What's your title?
I am the Livability Program Manager.
Livability Program Manager.
That's awful.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have been working on the Whately Comprehensive Plan. So if we want to go to the next slide, and then the next slide.
Okay.
We'll go through these pretty fast, high level summary, but so what's been happening, just a reminder, what's been going on so far was 2 years ago, the town got a grant to conduct phase one, a visioning process to engage the public and the community to understand what the town would like, what residents would like their town to look like in 20 or so years, kind of the basis of a comprehensive plan. What is the vision that residents would like to have regarding transportation, land use, and housing, all of the spectrums of topics. So we did that 2 years ago. We had sent postcards to every household and got good survey results back. And we're using that to now do this phase two of the plan, which the town received grant funding to do the actual writing of the comprehensive plan. So we're in process, and that's why we're here tonight. We've drafted 4 chapters of the plan so far, and we've started a couple of others. And we're here to get your input and feedback on those draft chapters.
Okay, and my general understanding is that the purpose of this plan is to provide strategic guidance to various boards and committees in the town, like the planning board, about things that we might consider doing or should consider doing to help bring about this future vision of the town.
Yeah, it's exactly. It has kind of 2 purposes. One is a larger framework of decision making. So when you're not sure quite what to do, you can go back to this plan and use that as a basis for decision making for various topics.
So if we recommend a zoning bylaw amendment, then it carries a little more weight if we can say this aligns with this particular goal or recommendation that we all agreed to in this comprehensive plan.
Exactly, yes. And then the second one is kind of a more detailed one that if there's a project listed in the comprehensive plan and you're going for grant funding, you can say, this is a project that our town really wants. It really helps you get that grant funding. So
Okay,
that's always something to think about. If you know there's a project in the next 15 or so years you really want to work on, that's going to require outside funding,
right.
make sure it gets mentioned in this plan.
Like
That
if we
does-
want sewers,
Yes.
I'm not sure we do, but if we did,
Yes,
that would be an
definitely,
example.
you'll probably need help with that.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good.
So we're drafting all chapters. We're hoping to have all the chapters completed by early spring. And then we'll go back out for public comment engagement. We'll do, I think, a variety of methods. Maybe some open houses, postcards, mailings again to every household to let people know that this draft plan exists, and get their buy-in and feedback on it. In the meantime, as each chapter gets finished, we will be posting them on the project website, which is whatelyplans.org, for public review. We're going to be letting people know about it in the Whately Scoop, on the social media website, letting people know that these chapters are there. Please look at them. Let us know, did we capture what you think is accurate for this topic?
Okay.
So lots of opportunity for people to comment on these.
Okay, all right. And the best way to submit comments would be through that website?
Yeah, our contact information is on the website.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. And so if like for tonight, you'll give us a sketch of all of this, but we probably won't really be providing much comment or feedback tonight.
Okay, perfect. Yes,
Okay.
that works for us.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, very good.
All right, next slide, yeah.
Okay.
Real quick before we get into the different topics, which I'll just kind of keep at a high level. What we've given to the select board and the planning board are what we're calling technical memos. At the beginning of this project, we heard from from various boards and committees and the town administrator that the final product of the comprehensive plan they want this to be very accessible, short, readable, not a huge tome that people are going to fall asleep reading. What's quick to the point. And so they want very short, succinct chapters. But to create those very short chapters, we still have to gather a lot of information and analysis and trends. And so what you have in front of you in your packets and will be on the website is those larger, we're calling technical memos that have everything, all of our analysis, all of our data in there. Once we feel that they've been reviewed and we've gotten some good comments on that, then we're going to take those and summarize them and make them short and succinct.
Okay. And the chapters, the 4 chapters you've circulated, those are the technical memos or there's something?
So yeah, so we have agriculture chapter, economic development and cultural resources chapter, and a climate change and energy chapter.
Yep.
Well, technical memos.
Yep.
And then you will have, there's a 4th one, housing. That we did feel because we just completed a housing production plan with, you guys just completed the housing production plan 2 years ago. We felt like that was as complete of a data analysis as you could get, and we're still up to date.
Mhm.
So what we did was we're treating that as the technical memo for housing. And what you'll see in the housing chapter is an example, a template of what we think the actual chapters of the comprehensive plan are going to look like.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Very good. So we're going to start with agriculture.
Yeah, so the agriculture, yeah. So for each of these chapters and technical memos that we're working on, we are taking the public input we received from the surveys and using that kind of as a model and the guide for each of those topics. But then we're also going to town committees and boards to make sure we get the special expertise of knowing what's going on that topic in the town. So for the ag chapter, our staff member has been working with the Agricultural Commission on this chapter. She met with them, I believe it was in last winter or spring, and got a lot of input to create this chapter. The Ag Commission has not reviewed this yet, the final chapter, because they're a little busy.
With agriculture, yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
So the plan was to come back after the growing season to check back in with them on the chapter. So there's that caveat. But the high level is farms are very important in town. They not only do people love them, it identifies the community character, but it also creates a lot of revenue and income for the town. So it's a very important aspect of Whately. One thing I thought was very important was that farmland only accounts for 15% of the land area, but 37%, so a little over a third of that farmland is protected permanently.
Okay.
60% is protected temporarily, like Chapter 60 land, so
Okay.
it's fairly protected. One other thing I thought was interesting is that climate change is having an impact on agriculture everywhere. Through drought and pests, things like that. One thing Whately is protected a bit is flooding. Only 3% of the active farmland in town is exposed to 100%, the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
So you're actually fairly protected from flooding, which is not the case for many of the farming.
Yeah, we read a lot about that during all those drenching storms
Yeah.
last year. Hadley, Sunderland, a lot of farms got flooded and led to damage to the soils.
So you guys are a little more protected, which actually might make the farmland very vulnerable as the years go on and more farms are more susceptible to farming.
Okay,
So it's really important to protect your farmland because
right.
it may last for a while, a
Yeah,
lot longer.
there's
than
only
most
so much of it.
farms.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And do I understand these percentages right when you say there's 15% of the land areas for farming? Of that 15%, call it roughly a third is protected permanently, and another 60%. So nearly 90% of that 15%
Yes,
is
most of
protected.
your farmland is protected.
Okay, that's what the main point.
Which is good.
Good.
All right, next slide. So a lot of these recommendations came from the Ag Commission. The profit margins on farming is so tight. Some of the things the town could help with is to remove the excise tax on farm animals. Working with local partners to identify the soils of local importance here in town.
Yep.
You already have a lot of prime farmland and statewide soils recognized that are of statewide importance. But we're not sure how many are of local importance, which might be more informative in terms of how you use your land in the future. Hatfield, for their comprehensive plan, did a soil quality study and looked at the potential for how good is the soil right now and what's the potential for soil regeneration. And that was really interesting. They found that the soil quality in Hatfield, which isn't far away, really has declined, except that the potential for regeneration is really high. And so mimicking that study here in Whately, I think, really instrumental and helpful.
But they don't rotate crops.
What's that?
Don't rotate crops.
They're
They just grow
more mono.
potatoes and potatoes. But there's no rocks in the fields that like potatoes because they don't show the rocks.
Right. I think that's probably it. But it can't hurt maybe to get more information if we get a grant funding to pay for it. And then we are going to be working, we've contacted the American Farmland Trust to get some strategies about farmer succession. As farmers get older, how do we make sure that the land stays in farms? And they've got some good strategies that they're going to be coming back to us with. So there is some more information that hopefully we put into this chapter.
Awesome.
And there are some zoning tools that we can always employ.
Okay.
Next chapter, next slide.
It's climate change and energy.
So we worked with the community development director for this, the energy committee and the Concom to get information on this chapter. A lot of it is based on the MVP plan, which was done in 2021, so it's not that long ago. Basically making sure things are more resilient as storm events happen, make sure your roads hold up, your water, public drinking water is safe and is maintained. And then again, the agriculture sector is important in towns. We want to make sure that we keep that resilient. Slide.
Okay.
And so a lot of these recommendations are all from the MVP plan, mostly making sure.
Sorry, that was just my.
MVP.
That's a Massachusetts vulnerability preparedness.
Plan. And so, just keeping things resilient. Chipping away at those recommendations. And as part of this chapter is the topic of energy. We worked with the energy committee on that as well. You guys have been doing a lot, but one of the big takeaways I think from this chapter is that you could be doing a lot more. There's a lot of grant funding and opportunities right now that are not being taken advantage of, and so having maybe someone more dedicated in town to focus on going after those opportunities might be more beneficial.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we've had trouble holding on to a community development administrator to sort of lead that particular battle. Okay. Very good. So that's energy and recommendations.
Right. So I think the main takeaway is there's a lot of opportunities for making sure the energy committee is strong and ready to go, and having a staff person that might help with grant opportunities.
on this slide, I did see, I was actually not sure I knew what this renewable energy siting regional coordinator is.
It's new.
Hence-
So a former staff member from the FERCog who really became an energy guru, Allison Gage, she actually left the cog, which we're upset about, but she's become the Western Mass Regional Coordinator, so it's actually good for us.
Okay,
So she's gonna be helping us, all of the towns in Western Mass, or at least the valley, focus on how to navigate the renewable energy siting regulations, which are
Right.
constantly changing and are being updated,
right,
and then helping with grant funding opportunities.
okay,
So she's gonna be a really great, resource for us.
good, okay. So that bullet suggests that this, Allison is already available for help to the extent that is that true, or is that like
I think
still?
she's just coming online right
Okay.
now. So I think she's gonna be having some meetings, regional meetings coming up to
Okay.
explain her position and how
That will
to
be,
take advantage of
that will be helpful, given some things that we've been up to. Okay, very good, thank you.
it. Okay, so economic development, cultural resources. We worked with a number of committees to inform this plan. Agriculture makes up 1/3 of the total wages. Actually, that's really been increasing recently. Norse Farms and cannabis cultivation has increased the funding and staff coming in town related to agriculture. Construction is also an industry that has seen growth in terms of the number of establishment and number of workers. However, the wages have actually declined in construction. So it's a positive, according to the stats. No, that's good to know. Let me make a note of that.
Yeah, we
I
have,
think over the last, I think
Sorry.
it was over,
Pay rates of all the guys in construction is probably about $10 an hour since COVID. At least in residential, high commercial construction.
in the last couple of years, or,
Since the start of COVID.
okay, all right, I'll make a note of that.
yeah, I would be surprised if the wages are going down.
No way up. It's a scarcity. There's no one
Right.
doing it. So to do more to have
Right.
retain good help.
All right, I'll look at the data again.
But are you aware of a growth in Whately in construction businesses?
No, there's only two of us.
Yeah.
We're like two big builders. Just renovate.
What about tradesmen? Is
Yeah,
that-
we're trading, right?
Yeah.
Custom, but like plumbers, electricians. Like no one
Yeah.
who comes. Oscar's going up.
All right, I will look back at that data.
Yeah, it would be interesting to understand that, and I think it's,
No one's questioning me. Yeah, I'm the biggest builder in Lakewood, that's me.
okay.
I
Well,
wonder if it gets lumped as, spring, but I'll take a look at that data. Which is why we're here.
yep. Very good.
Okay, outdoor recreation tourism has been identified as an opportunity for growth.
Huh.
You have a lot of beautiful resources. There's a lot of farms, agritourism is potential.
Mhm.
And the wider region is really trying to capitalize on outdoor rec tourism, and this is something that you could join and grow, benefit from. The industrial park only has one extra parcel left that's ready to be developed, so
Yeah.
there's limited growth there.
Yeah, and that's also an interest, so there is very little room for more, like if we're zoning for things that say, well, this is limited to the industrial district, then we're kind of saying, can't do it because we have basically
One.
almost nothing available. Okay,
Which brings me to the next slide for recommendations, is one of them is looking at the interchange 35
Yep,
zoning. So
right.
there's potential there in terms of how you zone things.
yes, which is still given get the community development administrator hired again, get a grant and.
I do have a comment about that. So when I read through the notes of the Exit 35 committee, and it was a lot of like, they're trying to create public spaces with food trucks and stuff like that, where people can assemble. The town of Whately needs foundations that pay taxes. That's what the town of Whately needs financially. We don't need food trucks. We need a restaurant with a foundation that pays property taxes.
Right.
We need a building that pays property taxes.
Right.
We need new growth to add the tax base because the cost of running this town is going through. So it's all nice to have that. That's what we have to have. Taxes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need the tax revenue.
And that was something we did hear from the surveys about the taxes.
Mhm.
So people are really feeling that they're too high, particularly older residents who are fixed
It is.
incomes.
So the more space that we devote to to someone that's not paying taxes, the worse off we are.
Though we're one of the relatively lowest taxed communities in Franklin County, is my understanding. But,
The tax rate is,
so the tax
the
rate's
tax rate
meaningless? Yeah,
your house appreciates in value every year
Yeah.
and depreciates more than Proposition 2.5. So your taxes go up a little bit, but your tax rate goes down because your house is worth more in the market.
Yeah.
So it's relevant, but it's not relevant.
okay.
There was a lot of interest on the surveys about attracting and fostering small businesses, especially you actually have one of the higher percentages of people self-employed here in town.
Yeah.
And so they want spaces to go gather and kind of not necessarily work at home, but not leave the town either.
Yeah,
So
We need
that,
more commercial space.
so that was definitely, that kept coming up over and over in the survey results.
and so does that mean expanding, because there's been pushback about expanding the commercial districts in town, like along 510.
I personally feel that we should more restrict the home-based business. It has to be on the commercial.
Interesting.
I
Okay,
think that home-based is taking way too much advantage of.
hey Laura.
And so related to that, developing a corridor study for Route 5 and 10, really looking at what are the possibilities there.
Right. Okay, yeah, I think there's some rich material in this particular chapter for things that we could look at from a zoning perspective
Definitely,
of
yes.
how could we help, or what do we have already that might be getting in the way?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, next slide.
Yeah.
So cultural resources, you guys have lots of history. And you have CPA, which is a really advantageous tool that many towns don't have. So that is really great. Next slide. So some of the recommendations it kind of relates to the outdoor rec tourism, using the assets you have, the agro farms, agritourism, some innovative things like a flower crawl or something like that to bring people in, spend money, and enjoy the resources you have.
right. Well, we already know across the river, they got a great maze, corn maze, and
Yeah.
a beer maze is like love the beer maze.
Next.
Okay,
All right, so last one, housing. So we just completed the housing production plan. And so no surprise, housing is getting more expensive. It's getting more expensive faster than people's incomes. So the affordability issue is serious here, even here in town, which even though you do have one of the wealthier towns in Franklin County in the region, people are a quarter of residents still have unaffordable housing costs. And there's very little available housing. The ones that are available are not easily accessible for your average person. They're
I could talk about this for hours.
$700 to $1 million. Yes.
My
Yeah.
brief comments about housing. We have affordable housing, which is set by the state by income levels, but by a certain level. Attainable housing, what I would say, is what a young married couple could afford with both working. Whately is almost out of the attainable housing market.
Mhm.
To try to build a new house, I build very energy efficient homes. With our current government and the push towards all electric homes, it has cost a fortune. It's added over $50,000 to the cost of a house, and the homes are no more energy efficient than the ones I built last year.
What's with the new stretch code?
They're all electric,
Yeah.
lowering the HERS.
Yeah.
Okay, to save $100 in energy costs, they're going to spend $50,000 to get there. And now you're pushing people out. But yet, if you want to put an ADU in, you can have a HERS score of like 60 or something. But if you want to build a single family dwelling, you got to be 42.
What's
How's that for snobs?
what's that number? I've never heard that.
Home energy rating
Oh,
systems.
home energy rating
Do you know
system.
what that
Okay,
is?
first not.
Under the Obama administration, they wanted to develop a system where you lessen the reliance on formal, which is a great idea, to make houses more energy efficient and make worse. They took a base model of 1985 house. They gave it a score of 100.
Okay.
Okay. Now we had to do energy modeling to make a house that was 30% more efficient than a house built in 1985.
Okay.
The old thing, well, houses have to breathe and everything. They do blower door tests on, they depressurize the house.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the target score was a 70 that we had 30% more efficient, which is good because if you're not wasting the energy, you don't have to make the energy. Okay.
Right.
So then we had stretch code sound and said, well, we're going to be a little bit better than the basic first. We're going to 65. So we had to be 65. My houses are typically
Okay.
okay. We had to be 7 air changes per hour. My dad's got a 1965 ranch. Blower door score got a 19. That means the volume of air in his house changes 19 times per hour, which means every 3 minutes, all the heat that he made leaks out of the house. He has to make it all over again.
Yeah.
Okay. My houses are half a air change per hour. Yeah. So when I make heat, it lasts for 2 hours before you have to make heat again. Whereas in my dad's house, every 3 minutes he has to make heat.
Right.
That's why you burn 8 quarts of wood or 1,000 gallons of oil.
Right.
But to do that, building science,
Yeah, but so they're trade-offs about how much energy savings.
So they're trying to make it more efficient, okay? And they did, and they very succeeded in making it more efficient. And then you got a politician, well, I'm going to be more energy efficient than the last one. We're going to go from 65 to 60 to 50 to 52 to 40 to 40. They keep lowering. Right now, they've realized the point of diminishing return. I think code class last week for attic insulation.
Okay.
The regular code is an R60 in the attic.
Okay.
If you're a stretch code town, it's back to 49. It's actually less insulation needed in a stretch code town because they realize how asinine it is.
Okay.
The point of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
To go from like R30 to R60, it costs a fortune to save 20 cents.
So I think we can, I think we get the point.
The town's control the
Right.
change, but what is the town's control is zoning.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's a tool that you can do. So
Right.
making smaller homes, duplexes, things that are like starter homes more
If we
easily.
go to the roof of Deerfield and Ashfield, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse.
In what way?
In the building, the
Structure the code.
Yeah.
Because
but it's going to get way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, that is
Way
a tool
worse.
you can choose to not accept if you'd like to.
Yeah.
But you do have zoning within your control,
Yeah.
and that is one way to.
And these are recommendations. Again, we've gotten a little sidetracked by battery storage, but there's still work on housing.
I am all for saving it. My house are so tight. They sip fuel. I put PV on them. They're electric car ready. I'm all about that. But make it worth it. Make it the economics work. That when I'm building a house for someone, they realize, yeah, if I spend the money on PV 3 years, I'm gonna pay for it. I have no energy in my house. But don't be like you have to put on PV, or we're gonna find you if you don't. It has to make sense for people.
And then there's other tools you can do. You have CPA, so that is a tool that kind of needs to be figured out how to use that more effectively. It's very expensive to create housing. You don't have a ton of money in that account, but there are ways to use it. One of them potentially is a shared housing coordinator with other communities that have CPA, kind of chip away at some projects. It's an idea.
Okay.
But if you want all the details, go to the chapter. So next steps of what we're doing. We're going to keep drafting the remaining chapters. The ones we just talked about tonight will be posted onto the project website for review. And then this spring we'll do public engagement, finalize the entire conference at the end of June.
Okay, so our mission is to read through these chapters and send or post comments or questions that we may have with the contact information there on that website.
Exactly.
WhatelyPlans.org.
Yeah, we want to know, did we reflect the needs and issues properly?
And I might have missed it when I was listening on Zoom, but if we go to the website, we have comments, is there like an online form we can fill out?
There's
right here.
it's very obvious.
Cool.
Contact, it'll go to me.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
I'll compile those.
All right, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your work on this.
Yeah, no, thank you. And if we really do want to get the word out. So if you think of a venue that we haven't thought of, like, we're doing the Whately Scoop and other stuff, but if there's something we're missing, please let us know. I'd be happy to go talk to people or share.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Megan. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. All right. Very good. So that's it on the comprehensive plan. The next topic, I just want to give you a brief a bit about this continuity of operations plan. So Lynn Sibley is the town's emergency management director. And she gave all boards and committees uh, directive to, there was a template for continuity of operations in the event of, the various foreseeable things. And so I was asked on behalf of the planning board to put together fill in the template. And I've circulated it. These are living documents, right? So we don't have to dwell on this. We don't need to vote on it. And I'm not going to spend much time on it tonight, just to let you know. Yes, but basically the essence of my work on this couple of pages to say that essentially our continuity of operations is that we're going to go to remote operations because to me, that's what we did during COVID. The main risk that we have is that certain records of planning board activities. When I joined the planning board in 2021, that's when this whole sort of OneDrive system, I started curating all of that. And so everything that we've done since that time is now on OneDrive, and paper records, as required by law, are maintained by the town clerk, who saves them, here. I don't know this. I assume that the vault, when closed and locked, is waterproof and fireproof and all of
I
that.
would assume so. I think
I don't
I
know.
think there's a fair.
But there are other paper records going back till, the Big Bang, as far as I know, that are in. Yes. So there are some open questions that I have, like if we were asked to research something from the 70s or 80s, it wouldn't be on OneDrive and it would be in paper records. And if that got destroyed in a flood, I mean, that's an open question. But in terms of how we would continue to operate and do business, it would be COVID era, all on Zoom, email, phone, whatever. And there's town leadership activity to sort of have phone chains and let everyone know that, oh, there's an emergency or whatever.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is I've drafted this. I'm going to submit it on our behalf. Look at it. If you have any feedback or questions, email me. That's the deal on continuity of operations. All right, very good. Very good. So we're now going to move to the battery storage bylaw topic on the agenda. And again, we only have the three of us tonight. One of the things so yes, we had our public hearing, we had our vote then, wrote a report, sent it to the planning board, sent it to the select board. I attended the select board meeting on the 24th of this month. I give a very short summary. They accepted it. As far as I know, this bylaw amendment is going to go on the special town meeting warrant. I was asked, however, at the select board meeting, whether the planning board had voted favorably on the proposal. And sort of we didn't really. And partly this may be on me, still somewhat new at this job. Like we voted to recommend it, which is what I thought we were doing.
Right.
But it does seem like on the town meeting warrant, we get to say whether we have a favorable recommendation that people should vote for it, or we have no opinion, or we're unfavorable.
That makes sense. It's like with the DMCTC, and we took a no opinion and sent it forward.
That's right. So I think probably in the future, when we have these kinds of votes, we should either have two separate votes or probably just have a vote. Either we favor the proposal, we don't favor the proposal, or we are neutral on it, and then we send a report with that.
Okay.
So tonight I'm going to just suggest that the three of us are here. We'll just have a motion and vote on what I believe is a favorable recommendation. So the motion would be, I'm sort of looking at you, Laura, to be the maker of this motion, that you would move to move for a favorable, that the planning board recommends a favorable vote at town meeting on this bylaw proposal. Is that wording reasonable?
I think so,
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Motion.
I make a motion to, I make a motion that the planning board move favorably.
Wait, so you can't move to move. So the motion is that that voters at town meeting, or that the planning board favors or support, why don't we just say the planning board supports the bylaw proposal?
Make a motion that the planning board supports the
Bylaw
proposal
proposal.
for battery
Energy storage prohibited in the
in the
Aquifer Protection District.
district.
I'll second that.
Okay.
That
All
very
right, well,
close
that was a very clumsy motion, but we all understand what we're voting on, all right? So, vote, all in favor? We're all here?
Yep.
Aye. All right, passes unanimously, 3-2, the only ones here. Okay, very good. So now what we want to do, with some remaining time tonight, is now go back to this original business with the general battery storage bylaw. I want to share a couple of pieces of news with all of you that have transpired since the last time we talked about this. Was that? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share,
My
one of the-
Apple email sometimes is
one of the
like-
last things that that Rusty did before they left their position was to collect all of our input on the draft that we got from the Energy Storage System Study Committee and sort of consolidate all of that so that we could have an orderly discussion section by section. And it was at your initiative that, we started that. At the same time, I took the initiative to request that town council, our lawyers, review the original proposal, actually the bylaw draft, the original bylaw draft, zoning bylaw draft from the Energy Storage System Study Committee, as well as the general bylaw. Because I was curious, would town council have any, would they find showstoppers? Would there be any, whatever
Right.
that we needed to know about before we went deeper into this whole subject? I'm happy to circulate the town council a week or so ago sent us this. I don't know that I have circulated all of that to you. But what I will, but I will summarize it as that town council basically went through and made a whole bunch of, wording changes and improvements and so forth. There was essentially, there's nothing in there that I would describe to you as a showstopper.
Okay.
The town council didn't say you can't do this or that won't pass. In fact, I think the best way to understand what town council did is David Dineski, our town council, made an effort to tweak this as needed to make it consistent with our existing zoning bylaws and sort of make it pass. One of maybe the most significant things he pointed out was this issue that you've pointed out, JD, regarding remember there was language in the original draft about it had to be 100 feet above the floodplain, an elevation measure,
Right.
which town council said, that could be my interpretation of what town council said is that elevation is like an issue, like, have you done any studies that could really rule out a lot of land? And I don't think that was the original intent anyway.
Right.
I think it was more intended as a distance away from.
Right, it might make more sense to say, 200-foot buffer zone from the river and
Right.
any other like significant water sources or something like that.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So then, anyway, a bunch of wording changes. So I came away with this sort of sense like, okay, when the time comes, depending on where we end up as a board on a zoning bylaw, to the extent that town council's feedback or changes to language on the original draft can be carried forward and integrated, we will attempt to do that. but we may just end up coming up with a new bylaw and send a whole brand new bylaw for review by town council. All right, that's kind of my current strategy here. So what I'd like to do tonight is have a focused discussion on one particular section of the bylaw, which is key and kind of picks up on the thread we were discussing around the Aquifer Protection District, okay? So what I have on my screen is, this is the document that Rusty circulated. Up here, there is the section B of the bylaw speaks to which battery energy storage systems the bylaw will apply to. That's where the different tiers got articulated and so forth. In black up here is the original draft language from the Energy Storage System Study Committee. I had a number of disagreements with that language. I felt that the thresholds were not right. I felt that and I think we had consensus on this board that the original draft was the original best bylaw from the committee was to be separate and apart from the bylaw pertaining to solar systems. So there were,
Okay.
and we, I think, agreed that we wanted to have one battery storage bylaw that dealt with batteries, whether they're standalone or part of solar
Right.
systems.
Yeah.
So there was language, like the original language you can see in that first paragraph, it applies to systems not constructed in association with them. So I had various personal disagreements with the original language, and I suggested different language. I also noted that the Energy Storage System Study Committee, you might say, recommended or proposed a strategy in which there was a certain threshold where the bylaw wouldn't apply, namely anything below a certain threshold was just okay.
Mhm.
All right. Then there was a tier 1 where it was a different size range, and then there was a tier 2. The Energy Storage Systems Committee took the position that whether it's tier 1 or tier 2, wherever they could go in different places, but always would require special permits. I had a disagreement with that strategy. I felt that tier 1 ought to be whatever that range of storage capacities is, should be allowable anywhere. So now I'm putting, and I'll show you my specific language. And this is why we're going to have a discussion about this, because I want to see what you're thinking about all of this. But the strategy I was going to recommend we adopt is one where there's an exemption threshold. There's a tier 1 where things like that can go anywhere, but of course, they have to comply with state and federal laws. They have to require with and the NFPA 855. They still have to adhere to certain setbacks and conditions in the bylaw. So it's not like they can go anywhere and they can be done willy-nilly. Right.
Within reason.
And
More places.
and there would still be site plan review.
Okay.
The concept I was going with, which was again the same concept we did around the Aquifer Protection District, is that up to a certain size, we expect that battery systems are so small that they're cabinet size, they're hidden, we can live with it.
Residential use.
Right.
And
Or small commercial. Then there's another category that's bigger, but not so big that we're going to really freak about them. We still want to have a say on where they're placed. We want to have some oversight, but we don't have to make it a discretionary permit level of oversight.
Right.
That was, by the way, that strategy was what was done by the town of Medway, kind of the original model for the Energy Storage Commission went with. But when they imported it, they said, no, we're going to special permit wherever we're going to allow it, regardless of the tier. And I think that's excessive. That's my opinion. All right.
Mhm.
So there's a little bit of feedback from others on section B, the applicability section. It's a very critical section, and why I want us to spend some time on this tonight, because I think once we're agreed on what this bylaw is going to apply to and what the tiers mean and how we want to regulate battery storage at different tiers, then I think a lot of the other language in the bylaw will flow, and we'll use the appropriate language from the study committee. But tonight, I just wanted to focus on the applicability section and see where we are about that. So I drafted this proposed new language to entirely replace the original language from the Energy Storage System Study Committee. So number one, the first paragraph, and I want to explain the language, and I've added some things that were not present in the Energy Storage Systems Study Committee draft. The first paragraph is, it applies to BESS with a capacity exceeding 300 kilowatt hours. Okay,
300
so
kilowatt-hours
that's the same threshold that we use for the Aquifer Protection
Yeah.
District.
flat.
So anything
Essentially a lot
up to, and in fact, David Dineski, our town council, did point out that whatever we do in this bylaw needs to be consistent with what we've done with Aquifer
Yeah.
Protection District. So I think we thoroughly discussed 300 kilowatt hours. We understand why we did that, and we feel, I think, as a board, that battery systems up to 300 kilowatt hours are safe enough that covers residential use, reasonable commercial use, and we don't really have to worry about them. So they will be exempt. The bylaw will not apply to battery systems up to 300 kilowatt hours. Now, the next bit is a little new. That second paragraph is now a new definition of tier one. Tier one will be, as I'm proposing for discussion, it will be less than 2.5 megawatt hours. And I'll give you a rationale for that. However, it must, if it is in a room or enclosed area, consist of only a single energy storage system technology. So I've been doing this research, and other towns have looked at this, that it's one thing to have one system that's using a consistent technology, all co-located.
Right.
But the threat and vulnerability profiles start to get different when you mix different kinds of energy storage technologies, like in the same container or the same room.
Well, and let's face it too, what we're worried about is if there's a problem with it, how do we address the problem? If there's multiple technology within that one thing, how do we
Right.
know, okay, well, which part of the system
Right.
fits? How do we handle it?
Right.
What contaminants could be at play here, whatever.
Exactly
So I
right.
like that a lot. That makes
Exactly
a lot of
right.
sense.
I'm concerned about this path.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a system with a certain amount of batteries and the product like that, and you're gonna get the new parts to fix that, but the parts are updated from this is, and it's not exactly compatible, but before it makes like a newer technology, now it's can't be in the same room. I think there's gonna be a greater chance of that happening. Like,
Oh,
they're
so
gonna mix
you're,
the same space, because like as technology changes, you might have all one this year, but next year you have one bank that went bad or one section that you got to replace.
yeah.
The newer stuff is going to be different than the other stuff. That's really
Different. So it's interesting. So the way, so let me sort of explain the original intent, and maybe let's think about how we might deal with that reasonable scenario.
Yeah.
But again, my original intent was tier one was going to, so we've dealt with the exempt tier below 300. 300 to 2.5. Why did I pick 2.5? We had this whole discussion about containerized BESS, and I'm saying, and I will reiterate that there is no data that I can find that gives us a reasonable relationship between energy storage capacity and risk of, you know,
Some type of
some
fail.
bad thing.
Yeah.
And it depends on what the battery storage technology is. Lithium ion technology is more vulnerable to thermal runaway than lithium iron phosphate technologies, which are now apparently proliferating. And there are going to be other new technologies coming online, right?
I can't even get a straight answer where they go in a structure when trying to build one. Because every municipality, and every
Yeah.
fire department, and
Yeah, and there was, Judy even circulated a letter from 2021 from the state about, guidance related to installation of energy storage systems in single-family residences and in apartments. Did you not?
I've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and it made me think about what's in my basement, but anyway. So anyway,
The experts are recommending that we don't put electric car chargers in garages.
That's right, I saw that.
Because they want firewalls and everything.
Yeah.
So our building code just says that we have to have them, but doesn't tell us where to put them, because they don't want them in politics.
All right. So anyway, back to this. The idea was this tier one. I'm trying to see if we can agree on a definition of a tier one, something that is greater than 300 kilowatt hours and less than some value we're comfortable with,
Sure.
where we think things up to that can pretty much go anywhere in town. No zoning restrictions,
Mhm.
and we could allow it as of right, which is again what Medway did.
I just, one other comment, you made a comment before that Ford Ranger, a Ford Lightning pickup is 140 kilowatts.
126 is the last number I
Still
saw.
a little company in town that has 4 little electric vans that has the 4 of them put together is 500 kilowatts. They're not allowed to do that.
Well, no, that's the vehicles are not considered.
Grant, I can't hear JD. Can
I know.
JD speak louder?
Okay.
Oh, my comment was that if you have a company in town that has an electric vehicle fleet of say like 4 vans that are 125
Yeah.
kilowatt
Zoning
storage,
does not apply to vehicles.
does not apply to
Does not apply to vehicles. That's just one of these
We
things.
regulate where you can park vehicles, we regulate how many you can store, we regulate how many unregistered.
But
you
we
can
can't
have.
regulate what kind of vehicles there are.
Okay,
But does it not? I
but
think
it is a battery electric storage system.
I know that. Like I said, there are certain things that we can't do or that we just, you might say, have to accept.
Okay, so I guess my question is now just for clarification.
Yes.
The 300 kilowatt hour exemption. To JD's point, if they have, say, 5 vans, it's gonna be 600 kilowatt hours that they would need in order to ensure that there's enough power to charge their vans overnight or whatever.
Well, no, because they're charging their vans off the grid versus off a battery source. So
Battery. Like, is your
Oh.
question if they had a battery, or are you talking about the vehicles themselves?
I'm
Or are you
talking
talking
Yeah.
about
You
if
made
they
a
had a
blank-
battery to
You made
charge
a
the
blanket
vehicles?
statement, we're saying on the site more than 300 kilowatts.
yeah,
You're
but
parking
But
three-
it's-
exemption,
yeah.
because you can have
Yeah.
6 people show up at wherever, a business, at the fireplace store, and they're all electric
Yeah.
vehicles, and all of a sudden you're
I
in
can take my
violation.
shipping container and bolt some tires for side.
okay, yeah, let's all right, let's not go there. Vehicles, electric
That
vehicles
makes sense.
for the purpose of a bylaw, like, and I've
Electric
asked,
vehicles just being
Yes.
parked.
I have
Grant, it's
asked-
not just, it's
I've
not just
asked-
vehicles. It's any mobile battery is not covered by zoning.
So any temporary battery.
Yeah, and
So that
even,
shipping container is not a temporary structure.
That's right.
Structure.
yeah, effectively not, right?
It's a temporary structure.
So you can have this conversation with your friend Jim Hawkins, all
Like
right?
a shipping
So
container?
this is a red herring. This is a distraction. Vehicles are not falling under that.
And beyond that. A shipping container is a temporary structure.
Yeah. Yeah, but we can regulate the placement. This is about land use.
I get it.
And we can regulate the placement of shipping containers on a permanent or semi-permanent basis. Just like we were able to regulate like long-term storage of
Okay.
recreational vehicles on residential lots.
Okay.
All right. So, but what I want to stay focused on is this 3-part concept, a threshold below which we don't worry about, which I think we've agreed is 300 kilowatt hours. Another range where we think it can go anywhere, but it still has to comply with the bylaw with respect to things like setbacks and other conditions that will be spelled out in this bylaw. But you will not require a special permit for this tier one. That's what I'm aiming for. Tier one is it can go anywhere, no special permit, must comply with the bylaw.
Okay,
All right. And then tier two would be now it must have a special permit because it's now at a size where we want additional oversight. And that might also be where supposedly the licensing piece to be addressed by the general bylaw would come into play. Because you wouldn't require a license for up to 300 kilowatt hours. And I would propose we wouldn't require a license for tier one. But tier two would have a special permit and a license. Tier one would just have site review.
okay, and exempt has nothing,
Nothing.
okay, cause I was trying to, after you were explaining it, I was like, well, what's the difference between exempt and tier one?
Yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
it's the site review.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah, basically, tier zero is the bylaw doesn't apply.
Right.
No, you just, of course, you have to follow all the electrical codes or
Yes,
all
but
other
the
laws.
bylaw, specific bylaw that we're discussing doesn't
Right.
apply.
But tier one and tier two is where the bylaw applies.
Right.
But I'm aiming for a strategy where tier one is as of right anywhere.
Tier one is essentially the fast pass, right? You take the fast pass and you're kind of
That's right.
pushed it through a little bit more quickly.
That's
Tier
right.
two, you have to stop at all the stop signs.
But we do have oversight. We can't
Right.
deny it. It's allowed as of right because we think that systems of this up to this storage capacity are safe. I mean, again, tier one would not be allowed in the Aquifer Protection District because
Which we've already
we've already established that. So that still
Right.
applies.
Right.
But outside the Aquifer Protection District, we would say, you want to put a tier one BESS on your property, you can do it, but you have to go through, it has to comply with the bylaw and there has to be site review. Because now it could be visible, right? It could be the size of a shipping container.
Right.
And maybe we don't want them putting it out in the front yard or, we want screening or whatever we
Sure.
may want. Okay?
So, I know you're gonna address this, but we're gonna keep an eye on the clock, keep things moving forward.
Yes.
The 2.5 megawatt hours threshold, where did that come from?
Yeah, and this is, we're doing vibe-based zoning here in
Okay.
the absence of data.
Sure.
And it's like, where are our comfort levels? For me, I thought about this containerized best thing. And I'm thinking, well, if based on what I can find out, it might be anywhere from 300 kilowatt hours to maybe 3 megawatt hours in a standard 20-foot shipping container. And my personal comfort level was like, I sort of feel like they can't be that bad. Like, and that the containerization. So I kind of picked a middle threshold. I
Okay.
thought like 2.5 megawatt hours. That's like somewhere between 1 and 3 megawatt hours and allowing for a little bit of I don't love it. I could personally be comfortable with a higher threshold.
Okay.
If people are nervous and cautious, they want a lower threshold.
My question would be more about like, what is the area that's gonna cover, right? Because if we're talking about, like, we're really looking at it from a land use perspective.
Yeah.
What is the land use of 2.5 megawatt hours? Is that one shipping container? Is it
One
two
shipping container.
containers?
It's
Okay.
one shipping
Okay.
container. My best understanding
Sure.
of it. And I think that footprint is going to get smaller and smaller with time.
Probably.
Well, exactly. This is more power than.
The ENIAC of my youth, right? Yes. So, and I don't want to have a bylaw that becomes obsolete almost as soon as
Yes.
it's approved.
Which is, I think, is
Well, that
Making our best effort with the information we have for
Right.
that to not happen.
that's
my point that I was getting at before. Is
Yeah.
that everyone always looking at the gray areas. Where's the loopholes? Where can we get something in to have a little bit to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace? So in this range, some company's gonna come out, kind of like Vivint did we're gonna put solar on your house and we sell panels to you. They're gonna grant. I got this little tow behind trailer here. It's got license plate on it. It's got this much capacity to put in your backyard. You can sell power to your neighbors and make a profit to yourself. That happened. They're gonna look for a loophole.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I also am a believer that the perfect is the enemy of the good enough, that I'm looking for a good enough outcome here, right? I think that what we got from the storage, that the study committee was overly restrictive and may have inadvertently come from a place of, let's just try to make it impossible to put these anywhere in town.
We're trying to come up with a happy medium.
Yes.
essentially, Right? So
Yes.
my thought is, to JD's point, is there somewhere that we can put in language that defines maybe, an asterisk that says, for the purpose of this bylaw, a storage container is not considered a temporary structure or something, you know what I mean? Is there some kind of caveat we can put in? Because I think your point is like, if somebody comes along and they're like, well, I can fit, however many storage containers on this property and they're all temporary structures, and then therefore I can put as many batteries in there that I want. So if we can put a restriction on this, storage container or whatever structure,
Yeah.
that it's not considered temporary when it's used for this capacity.
Mind you, all these things have to pass the state fire marshal.
Right.
Yeah,
That's the
so let me,
board.
I'll have
They have
to
to pass that.
contemplate that, because
Yeah.
certainly if you as a designer of such systems can fit a certain amount of capacity in a standard 20-foot shipping container, you're not going to spread it out over 5 acres.
Well, and also too, I don't think like realistically, if somebody makes the investment to have one of these battery systems inside a shipping container, they're not calling somebody with a tow truck to come and winch it up on the flatbed and move it to the neighbor's property in 2 months.
Yeah.
I think they're, by nature of what they are and the technology that's in there and the finances that go into it, they're probably not going to be used in a temporary nature.
And I think there is definitional language about dedicated use buildings or structures that I think gets around this whole issue of temporary. Like, I think if you put a structure, I mean, I think you would be required by the building inspector or whatever you couldn't just put a new structure. A shipping container is still a structure being placed on land, and it would have to.
I mean, essentially, I work in lending. So for me, a shipping container in certain practices is mobile, and in certain practices it's not. Right. If you're using it to store tools in, and you can move it from job site to job site, that's one thing.
Right.
But the minute you're going to start, okay, well, it's housing for my animals or whatever.
Right.
Right. People live in that. Like, there's so many uses for it that I think at some point you have to look at. Okay, what is the intended use? Is it realistic that, like, for example, from a security collection, we're not going to go collect it and auction it off when it's full of batteries and it's hooked up to somebody's house and it's got this and that. It becomes less temporary in nature.
I have a very big roof on each road. I need a 10K array. It's all I can have for the I could put a huge array on there, and I can put a battery electric storage system, and I can sell power to Glenn, cheap and whatever source.
JD is mumbling again.
Okay, all right.
Just going off scenarios.
Yeah.
We can do
Okay. All right. So, and I know Judy's attending, and I want to give her a chance to weigh in on this, but this is what I'm proposing for applicability. So I think the focus of the conversation should be, can you live with a strategy like I've outlined, where there's a tier 0 exempt, there's a tier 1 that's by right, but the bylaw applies and their site plan review. And then there's a tier 2 where it's special permit, and we may, as the committee proposed, restrict the districts in town where tier 2 systems can go.
I like that. I think this has become, I should say, such a beast dealing with this. I think if we can break it into smaller parts, figure out some type of way to containerize it, for lack of a better term, I think the tier thing makes a lot of sense. I do agree that I could even see going up to 5 megawatt hours, and if that's 2 storage containers, whatever, I've got 4+ acres at my house. We could hide 2 storage containers that nobody even sees from the road.
Right.
Yeah. So I would even be comfortable. I don't know that I'd want to go past 5, but I think going up to 5 would be pretty reasonable.
That's kind of where I am, is that, and coming into tonight's discussion, like I said, I'm aware that there's some people who want these numbers as low as possible.
Sure.
And there are others like me that are more comfortable with bigger numbers. But as long as we have a reasonable consensus among ourselves, like I think this really thinking about storage based on its physical footprint makes it a little more real about how dangerous it is, or like, because I think mostly people worry about the 100 megawatt plus,
Yes. Well,
multi-acre systems.
conceptualize too, if you've not seen it in person, like,
Right.
it's hard to say, okay, I don't know, does 2.5 megawatt hours, is that an acre of storage containers? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
And until you know.
Sounds
it's-
big.
Yes, it does.
A million megawatts. My
right.
God, it must be. It must take up.
Yes, it's mega.
Right, that's right. And that's sort of why even in the original committee proposal where they were putting acreage limits on these tiers, they're nonsensical because something like in the original language, tier one under 600 kilowatt hours may not exceed 2 acres in size. Well, 600 kilowatt hours easily fits within a shipping
Mhm.
container. No one's going to.
Well, then too, I guess, I mean, I don't want anything really with, I'm not even a big fan of solar, to come and take up like ag land, for
Right.
example. But,
Right.
I do think like, I also don't wanna see, a 6-story tower, because they've been trying to get away from spreading it on the
Right.
ground level,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
There's.
I mean, luckily we do have height limits.
Yes.
Okay. So I think, again, before I give Judy a chance to speak, I think right now it sounds like we might be okay. I do want to then somehow bring Mike into this at the next meeting and make sure there's broad
I
consensus.
believe he said last week that he's harvesting corn tonight.
He had some, yeah, he said
He
something.
very
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's,
He's a
I have
farmer.
nothing but respect for a farmer serving on the planning board. But it
Yeah.
seems like maybe we might be okay with up to 5 megawatts for the upper end of tier one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Judy, if you have comments or anything you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised at your basic assumption, that if something doesn't require a special permit, that they have to obey the bylaw. Because I think by right means by right, and the bylaw doesn't apply. So and
How could
site
that
plan
be so?
review, let me finish, please. Site plan review does not mean enforcing the bylaw. That's entirely a ZBA function. And the ZBA enforces the bylaw through the site plan review process. So if you take away site plan review, I don't think you have any mechanism to ensure compliance with the bylaw. Site plan review would then go back to the basic site plan review, which just establishes the fundamental conditions. So I really suggest you talk to town council before you pursue this much further, because it doesn't square with my understanding of the way things work.
So,
Special permit is designed to ensure that you comply with the bylaw. That's the point. And that the siting is reasonable, but mostly it's compliance with the bylaw.
So Judy, let me ask you this question. So single family homes are allowed in Whately as of right. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Do they need to comply with zoning bylaws?
They need to comply with the basic setbacks, not with any special bylaws. Those setbacks apply to everybody unless a subsequent chapter changes them. So those fundamental setbacks apply.
But those
And
setbacks
it's
are zoning.
understood that way. I seriously, I suggest you talk to town council, but
I'm happy to.
I'm very uncomfortable with this. I don't think that's the way it works.
Okay.
And
I will point out that again, that what I'm articulating here today is in fact the town of Medway's strategy.
The
So,
town of Midway has very different circumstances, and the one reason I think that the zoning bylaw is important is because it allows us to impose environmental restrictions that are not included in any of the NFPA ones, or in the Underwriter Labs ones, or in the building code. So if somebody, this requirement for containment and good containment, and I understand that that's a weakness in the bylaw and needs strengthening. The requirement to be separate from public wells, from private wells. I mean, I think if you go to by right, somebody could put, from the way you're talking, a 5 megawatt facility within 50 feet of my well, if my well happened to be close to my lot line. So there are risks and things that are not in the regulations that we need to incorporate in the zoning. The lack of public water. I mean, we didn't pick 4 acres. I should be explicit. We picked 4 acres because we thought it was a reasonable size that the town would accept. The AG's office accepted it in Sunderland, and it effectively limited, at least with the current technology, facilities, prevented the 100 megawatt facilities, which are much bigger than that. But if you think about it, it's also a size that I think the fire department could presumably establish a periphery around. If there's no size limit, it's going to be very hard for them to even think about containing a fire. So our needs are so different. It's the lack of public water for fire control. It's the wells. And the risks are very different. And I think we have to think about them. But I'm extremely concerned about your basic premise, which doesn't square with anything, that by right still means you comply with the bylaw. So, and I think your whole argument depends on that.
so I'll have,
Or the subsequent logic anyway.
okay,
Because a couple of other things, this water business is scary. I can't find any regulations. NFPA doesn't cover it. There's no state guidance on private wells that I could find. I talked to JP, said he briefed you. The NFPA 855 is no help with where there's no private water. I asked, he was going to check with the state fire marshal. I believe he told you that the fire marshal has no guidance on the issue. I talked to Jim Hawkins to find out how they were administering projects that just came under the building code to try and see what they did. He said, well, basically we turn it over to the fire department. And he said, and then he threw in a comment that there's a big facility going in Northfield, and Northfield and the state fire marshal isn't quite sure how to handle it. Now, they do have public water. They're saying one branch of the state fire marshal's office is saying that they should have a hydrant for every container to control the fire risk. Another one says, no, that's too big. But basically, Jim said, well, the technology's gotten ahead of the regulations. So that's not especially helpful, but I do think that we need to be very, very sensitive to this whole water issue and to make sure that it's a requirement because it's not in the building code. So if you do it by right and it's too big, then there's no regulation. And it has to be somewhere in the zoning. So I guess in terms of this applicability, that would be my main concern tonight.
Okay. And I think that's very reasonable. I can research that. That was my understanding that we can create the zoning bylaw and we can specify, we can do certain things as just site review, other things as special permit. In fact, I think that I thought there were examples of this in our zoning bylaws, but anyway, let me take that feedback because indeed, if for some reason by allowing best tier 1 as of right anywhere would suddenly mean that nothing in the zoning bylaw would apply, that would change my recommended approach.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So I think with that, I'm going to close tonight's discussion on this topic. Thank you very much. Our next meeting is going to be on October 28th. It's a Tuesday. It turns out that the select board is meeting not on October 29th, Wednesday, but on October 22nd, Wednesday. However, I'm elsewhere committed on Wednesday, the 29th. Can we still do Tuesday, the 28th? With you have finance committee commitments?
We're meeting in the afternoon.
Okay.
Let me see what I got to.
But ordinarily, I would expect us to try to do Tuesday, the 28th at 5:30.
Sounds good for me.
Okay,
Yeah, FinCom is October 7th.
okay.
And capital planning is. Did we date it? We got a date. Working on that. Working on that.
Okay, very good. So then to my knowledge, there's no other business. Do any of you have any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Do you want to just keep talking? No. Okay, then a motion has been made to adjourn, seconded, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned at 6:57 PM.